under this Prime Minister, a strong Indigenous woman gets fired for telling the truth, when a weak, fake Indigenous man gets to keep his job after lying.
Several occasions today, we've been skating close to the line in terms of what's acceptable language. The honourable member from Leeds Grenville.
He decided to increase and open the door to 726% more asylum claims.
Did you see what just happened in Parliament? Poilievre and Scheer tag team to expose a massive lie about Canada's housing crisis. The look on Greg Fergus's face said it all. With immigration targets skyrocketing to 435,000 and housing completions lagging behind, the Liberals' story is falling apart. You won't believe the shocking numbers that left Fergus speechless and Trudeau nowhere to be found. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Imagine trying to fit 435,000 new people into a house built for 260,000. That's basically what Trudeau's doing to Canada. The Liberal government's sky-high immigration targets are on a collision course with the harsh reality of our housing crisis. Let's break it down. Trudeau wants to bring in nearly 500,000 newcomers each year. Sounds great, right? More diversity, more talent, more growth. But here's the kicker. We're only building homes for about half that number. It's like inviting guests to a party when you don't have enough chairs.
He decided to increase and open the door to 726% more asylum claims.
Today we've been skating close to the line in terms. Excuse me, colleagues.
He decided to approve 211% more international students.
This massive gap between newcomers and available homes is creating a perfect storm. Rent prices in major cities are going through the roof. Families who've lived here for generations are being priced out of their own neighborhoods. The dream of home ownership? For many, it's turning into a nightmare. Take Sarah from Vancouver. She's a nurse, working double shifts to save for a down payment. But every time she thinks she's close, the goalposts move. It feels like I'm chasing a mirage, she told us. Or Mark in Toronto sleeping in his car because rent ate up his entire paycheck. These aren't isolated cases, they're becoming the new normal. But wait till you hear how Poilievre exposed this mess. In Parliament, he came armed with cold, hard facts. He showed how the Liberals' so-called housing strategy is nothing more than empty promises. Poilievre pointed out that for every new home built, we're bringing in 2 new residents. It doesn't take a math genius to see that doesn't add up. He didn't stop there. Poilievre laid bare the real consequences of this policy disaster. Skyrocketing homelessness, families crammed into tiny apartments, young people giving up on ever owning a home. His data-driven takedown left the Liberals squirming in their seats, unable to defend their failed policy.
Prime Minister is hunting for the quote-unquote bad actors who ruined the system.
Possible moment used a word which would not be considered acceptable.
The employment minister first denied that he and his company were profiting off government business, and then text messages.
And if you thought that was bad, wait till you see how they handled the immigration file. The housing crisis is just the tip of the iceberg in Trudeau's mismanagement of Canada's growth. The next chapter in this story will leave you wondering how we got here, and more importantly, how we're gonna get out. You've seen the housing chaos, but that's only half the story. Remember when Canada was known for its world-class healthcare and education? Those days are long gone. The Liberal government's immigration gamble has pushed our public services to the breaking point, and you won't believe who's paying the price. Let's talk numbers. Under Trudeau's watch, international student numbers have exploded to a staggering 900,000. That's triple what we saw during Harper's time. And it's not just students. Temporary foreign workers are pouring in at record rates too.
But a plan that only talks about permanent immigration misses the other pathway. Since they're already here, established and working, the added pressure put on communities is very low. International students, temporary workers, and so on. They come to work a job or go to school.
But here's the kicker. There's not a single extra home or hospital bed to accommodate them. This massive influx is crushing our public services.
When the job is done or when they finish their degree, most return home. Some apply to stay as permanent residents. Temporary residents who are already in Canada, some will apply to stay in Canada as permanent residents. It's usually a small proportion of our population, so it's never been a part of the long-term immigration.
Hospitals are bursting at the seams with wait times that would make your head spin. Schools are packed to the rafters, leaving teachers overwhelmed and students struggling. And good luck finding a family doctor. You might have better odds winning the lottery. In major cities, the situation is dire. Canadians who've paid taxes their whole lives are now waiting months for essential surgeries. Emergency rooms are turning into campgrounds, with patients left in hallways for days.
Support ideas that would fill in the gaps for the very, very small minority of people who don't have drug coverage and can't afford medication. Only the government would be allowed to be that single payer and provide drug coverage. Nobody's talking about it. Pushes for something called a single payer system. Now, what does that mean?
It's a far cry from the Canada we once knew and loved. But just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, Andrew Scheer stepped into the ring. He didn't pull any punches. In a blistering attack, Scheer exposed the glaring disconnect between the Liberals' runaway immigration numbers and their pathetic housing development. Scheer called it like he saw it, a textbook example of Liberal arrogance and entitlement. He demanded answers. How could the government allow such a massive gap between newcomers and available homes? It's like inviting the whole neighborhood over for dinner when you've only got a microwave pizza.
Come under this Prime Minister, a strong Indigenous woman gets fired for telling the truth when a weak, fake Indigenous man gets to keep his job after lying.
Several occasions today, we've been skating close to the line in terms of what's acceptable language. The honourable member from Leeds Grenville.
For the Speaker to clarify, the word fake, but the Minister did.
He faked all those things.
The look on the Liberals' faces was priceless. They squirmed in their seats, desperately searching for a way to spin this disaster. But the numbers don't lie, and Scheer wasn't about to let them off the hook. But the real shocker? How Fergus tried to defend this mess. You won't believe the mental gymnastics he pulled to justify the unjustifiable. It's a response that'll leave you wondering if we're living in the same Canada anymore.
I think has skated over that line and accusing a direct member. Can I ask the honourable member
That he's not the Randy in the text messages, but his own business associates say there is no other Randy.
The Liberals' disastrous policies have created a perfect storm. Skyrocketing immigration, a housing crisis, and crumbling public services. It's a recipe for national disaster. Trudeau's grand vision is crashing into the harsh reality of Canada's infrastructure limits.
After the Prime Minister took his private jet, burned 105 tons of jet fuel.
I was having trouble hearing the member. I don't think I heard the withdraw. If he could withdraw and start again, I'd appreciate it.
Next time you hear Trudeau boast about his housing strategy, remember the stark numbers. 435,000 newcomers, only 260,000 new homes. It doesn't take a genius to see the mismatch. Can Canada really handle Trudeau's ambitious plans? Or are we racing towards a full-blown crisis? The evidence is mounting, and it's not looking good for the Liberals, with experts warning of long-term consequences and opposition parties calling for drastic changes. One thing's clear, Canada's at a crossroads. The question is, will we change course before it's too late?